Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a topic that affects millions of people worldwide, but is often surrounded by stigma and misinformation: herpes viruses. We'll be talking about herpes simplex virus type 1 and type 2, as well as the virus that causes chickenpox and shingles. Our goal is to clear up the confusion, provide factual information, and empower you with knowledge. So, let's get started. First, what exactly is the herpes virus family? It's a large group of viruses known for a unique characteristic. They can establish a lifelong latent infection in the body. This means that once you're infected, the virus stays with you, often lying dormant for long periods before potentially reactivating. The most well-known members are herpes simplex virus, or HSV, and varicella zoster virus, or VZV. Let's break down herpes simplex virus first. There are two main types, HSV1 and HSV2. Historically, HSV1 was primarily associated with oral herpes, causing what we commonly call cold sores or fever blisters around the mouth. On the other hand, HSV2 was typically linked to genital herpes. However, it's crucial to understand that this distinction is becoming less rigid. How are these viruses transmitted? Transmission occurs through close personal contact with an infected person. For HSV1, this could be through kissing, sharing utensils, or sharing lip balm with someone who has an active cold sore. For HSV2, transmission is most often through sexual contact with someone who has a genital HSV2 infection. A critical point to remember is that the virus can be transmitted even when there are no visible sores or symptoms. This is known as asymptomatic shedding, and it's a major reason why the virus is so widespread. So what are the symptoms? When someone is first infected, they might experience a primary outbreak, which can be quite severe. This can include flu-like symptoms such as fever, body aches, and swollen lymph nodes. Then, painful blisters or sores appear at the site of infection, whether it's the mouth, genitals, or another area. These blisters eventually break, leaving tender ulcers that take a few weeks to heal. For many people, this initial outbreak is the worst they will experience. After the first outbreak, the virus doesn't just go away. This is where latency comes in. The virus travels from the skin or mucous membranes along the nerve pathways to a bundle of nerve cells called a ganglion, where it settles in and becomes dormant. For oral herpes, it typically resides in the trigeminal ganglion near the ear. For genital herpes, it settles in the sacral ganglion at the base of the spine. While it's dormant, the virus is inactive and doesn't cause any symptoms. It's essentially hiding from your immune system. However, the virus can reactivate and travel back down the nerve pathways to the skin's surface, causing another outbreak. These recurrent outbreaks are usually less severe and shorter than the primary one. Triggers for reactivation can vary widely from person to person. Common triggers include stress, illness, fatigue, sun exposure, hormonal changes, and physical irritation to the area. Some people have frequent recurrences, while others may have only one or two in their lifetime, or even just the initial outbreak. Now let's shift gears and talk about another common member of the herpes virus family, the varicella zoster virus, or VZV. This is the virus responsible for two distinct conditions, chickenpox and shingles. Most of us are familiar with chickenpox, a common childhood illness that causes an itchy, all-over rash of blisters. Once you've had chickenpox, the VZV virus, just like HSV, doesn't leave your body. It retreats into nerve ganglia, usually in the spine or near the head, and enters a dormant state. Years, or even decades later, this same virus can reactivate. But this time, it doesn't cause chickenpox again. Instead, it causes shingles, also known as herpes zoster. Why the change? When VZV reactivates, it travels down a specific nerve fiber to the area of skin supplied by that nerve. This is why the shingles rash is so characteristic. It typically appears as a painful, blistering stripe on one side of the body or face. It follows the path of the nerve, called a dermatome, and doesn't cross the body's midline. What causes VZV to reactivate? The primary factor is a weakened immune system. This is why shingles is more common in older adults, as our immune systems naturally become less robust with age. It's also more common in people with compromised immune systems due to medical conditions or treatments like chemotherapy. Significant stress or injury can also be triggers. The symptoms of shingles often begin before the rash appears. People might feel a tingling, itching, burning, or deep pain in the area where the rash will eventually develop. When the rash does appear, it consists of fluid-filled blisters similar to chickenpox, but they are localized to that one nerve path. The pain associated with shingles can be intense and is often the most debilitating symptom. After the rash scabs over and heals, which can take several weeks, some people may develop a complication called postherpetic neuralgia, or PHN. This is a persistent nerve pain that can last for months or even years after the rash is gone, and it can be quite severe. So, how are chickenpox and shingles transmitted? You can't catch shingles from someone who has shingles. However, a person with an active shingles rash can spread the varicella zoster virus to someone who has never had chickenpox or the chickenpox vaccine. In that case, the newly infected person would develop chickenpox, not shingles. The virus is spread through direct contact with the fluid from the shingles blisters. Once the blisters have crusted over, the person is no longer contagious. It's important to address the stigma surrounding these viruses, especially HSV. Having herpes is incredibly common. The World Health Organization estimates that billions of people globally have an HSV-1 infection, and hundreds of millions have HSV-2. It's a manageable skin condition, not a reflection of a person's character or worth. Living with it involves understanding your triggers, managing outbreaks, and communicating openly with partners. Antiviral medications are available that can help reduce the frequency and severity of outbreaks and also lower the risk of transmission. Similarly, for shingles, there is good news. There are highly effective vaccines available that can significantly reduce your risk of developing shingles and its complications, like PHN. These vaccines are recommended for older adults. If you do develop shingles, starting antiviral medication as soon as possible can help shorten the duration of the illness and reduce its severity. Understanding how these viruses work is the first step toward dispelling fear and stigma. They are masters of latency, capable of hiding in our nervous system for a lifetime. HSV-1 and HSV-2 are typically transmitted through close personal contact and cause recurrent sores, while the varicella zoster virus first causes chickenpox and can later reactivate to cause the painful rash of shingles. All of these conditions are manageable, and living a full, healthy life with them is absolutely possible. Knowledge is power, and by talking about these topics openly and accurately, we can support each other and make informed decisions about our health. If you are experiencing symptoms or are concerned about herpes or shingles, please talk to a healthcare professional. They can provide an accurate diagnosis and discuss the best management options for you. Remember, you're not alone in this. Thank you so much for watching and for taking the time to learn with us today. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more health content. Stay informed, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next video. You might remember that the virus hangs out in sensory neurons, and that's going to be really important in a second. You have a dorsal root ganglion on both sides of your spinal cord at every single spinal level. So you have a right and left C7 dorsal root ganglion, a right and left T5 dorsal root ganglion, and so on. Understanding these spinal levels is key to figuring out where a shingles rash will show up. So, what flips the switch and wakes this dormant virus up? Let's fast forward 20, 30, or maybe even 50 years after that initial chickenpox infection. Something weakens your immune system. This allows the virus to reactivate, travel down a sensory nerve, and erupt on your skin. One of the most common triggers is simply age. Our immune systems naturally slow down as we get older, which is why about half of all shingles cases happen in people over 60. But that's changing. We're seeing more younger people getting shingles, possibly due to increased stress and a general decline in health in the younger generation. Other things can also weaken the immune system, like cancer treatments, HIV, organ transplants, or autoimmune diseases, giving the virus an opening to come back. Now, since you're watching this, you probably care about your health. So let me quickly tell you about an awesome tool for gaining incredible health insights, the Hume Health Body Pod. This isn't just some bathroom scale. It's a clinical-grade body analyzer that gives you way more information than just your weight. The Body Pod uses bioelectrical impedance analysis to scan and deliver over 45 metrics, like skeletal muscle mass, body fat percentage, hydration levels, and even your metabolic age. It even breaks that data down by region, which helped me realize I still have some mild imbalances between my left and right sides. You could definitely use this to address muscular imbalances. I'll admit, I was skeptical about at-home devices claiming 98% accuracy like the Body Pod does. but I had body composition tests done at a lab right around the same time I started using the body pod, and the results were nearly identical. I've been using it for weeks now, logging consistent weigh-ins, syncing my sleep and workouts, and setting milestone goals in the app. As a bonus, the body pod is HSA and FSA eligible. So, if you want to know more about your own anatomy, click the link in the description to check out the body pod and use our coupon code TheAnatomyLab to get 20% off. Plus, that discount stacks on top of the current online sale for up to 50% off. Go ahead and start optimizing your health routine today. And now, let's get back to shingles. What about your vaccination status? Some of you got chickenpox the old-fashioned way, and some of you got the vaccine. I remember teaching high school anatomy back in 2015. We were talking about viruses, and I asked the class, "Remember when you all got chickenpox?" Over half the class just stared at me like, "What are you talking about?" Then I remembered how much younger they were. So I asked for a show of hands, and only a few had actually had chickenpox because most had been vaccinated. This is important because if you got chickenpox naturally, you have a higher risk of developing shingles. You were infected with a live, active virus, leading to a higher viral load. Those who were vaccinated got a live attenuated virus, which is a weakened version designed just to trigger an immune response without severe symptoms. Because it's weaker, it's less likely to reactivate as shingles later on. A common question I get from patients with shingles is, am I contagious? Well, sort of. You can't give shingles to someone else directly. Remember, shingles is the secondary infection. So, I've never been worried about a patient with shingles giving me shingles because I already had chickenpox. The virus is likely dormant in one of my dorsal root ganglia already. But if someone with shingles is around a person who has never had chickenpox or been vaccinated, they could give that person chickenpox. I had a really interesting case a couple of years ago. A mother brought in her 2 kids with some weird bumps on their skin. She thought it was a reaction to a pond they'd been swimming in, but I looked at the bumps and said, "This actually looks like chickenpox," which is rare to see in the clinic now because of the vaccine. I asked if the kids had been vaccinated, and she said yes, but they only got one of the 2 required doses. About 20% of kids who get only 1 dose can still get a mild case of chickenpox if exposed. But where were they exposed? The mom said their dad had a weird rash on his arm and refused to see a doctor. She showed me a picture, and it was a classic shingles rash. So the kids got a mild case of chickenpox from their dad's shingles because they weren't fully immune yet. Finally, let's talk about symptoms. This is where shingles earns its reputation. It usually starts with a prodrome phase, a warning period before the rash. You might feel tingling, itching, or burning pain in a specific area, usually on one side of your body. Then, a rash erupts, red patches that turn into fluid-filled blisters and crust over in 7 to 10 days. The pain can be intense, described as burning, stabbing, or like an electric shock. So why is this rash so painful, and why does it usually only affect one side of the body? Remember where the virus hangs out, in the dorsal root ganglion, which contains sensory neurons. When the virus reactivates, it travels down that sensory nerve to the skin, causing the blistering rash. And because it's affecting a nerve, the pain is intense. Those sensory nerves supply a very specific area of skin called a dermatome. We have these dermatomes mapped out all over our body. So, if the virus was in your left L4 dorsal root ganglion, the rash would show up in the L4 dermatome on the left side of your body. It most often affects the thoracic dermatomes, which is where shingles got its name. The name comes from the Latin word cingulum, meaning belt or girdle, because the rash often wraps around one side of your torso like a belt. Sometimes, the virus hides in a ganglion in a cranial nerve called the trigeminal nerve, which serves the skin of the face. This can cause a shingles rash on one side of the face. If it affects the branch that serves the eye, it can be serious and affect vision if not treated properly. So how is shingles treated? The main treatment is antiviral medication, which works best if started within 72 hours of the rash appearing. For pain, over-the-counter options can help, but for severe nerve pain, stronger medications might be needed. There's also a shingles vaccine, recommended for adults over 50, that's over 90% effective. And yes, you can get shingles more than once, so even if you've had it, you can still get vaccinated to prevent a second round. When shingles resolves, the virus just retreats back into the dorsal root ganglion. Hopefully, this has given you enough information to understand this unique rash and make informed decisions about prevention and treatment. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.